Hi, I'm Brian Kellerman, co-founder and chief food safety officer at Kellerman Consulting, and you are watching our video series on a culture of food safety. In our previous video, we looked at the foundations of a culture of food safety, and now we want to turn our attention to establishing a strong structure and how to properly delegate to keep a culture of food safety in place once it's established. As a business owner, I understand very well the non-operational issues that are ongoing in a complex operation, and I'm responsible for attending to high-level issues within my business. But I also have to make time to check in on the actions of my employees to make sure all operations are being done according to our company core values, and that people performing those tasks are holding themselves accountable, and that they understand what the task is and why it is important. So, with that in mind, we are going to look at how to properly set up organizational structure and then how to make sure we properly delegate tasks with that structure to assure a proper culture of food safety. One thing that we hear from many of our clients that operate small businesses is that each person wears many hats, and that is fine. How you define the structure of your organization does not have to be rigid, and where there are a few people doing a lot of tasks, you make a structure that makes sense to you, even if one person shows up in several spots when we document the structure. The important issue here is that there must be structure, it should be written down, and it should be updated when employees come and go from the organization. A written list or chart for the organizational structure is a key reference point for documenting both the leadership and the lines of responsibility for food safety tasks. A proper organizational chart has the following characteristics. 1, it is current with the names and positions of the people in it, which means it changes and sometimes pretty frequently. 2, all managers are listed on the document. Frontline production workers are optional to be included, especially when there are lots of them. So include up to at least the level of the supervisors. 3, the lines of supervision or authority are clear and accurate so that the organizational document states who oversees the employees that report to them. 4, the organizational document covers all of the activities of the organization. And what I'm speaking about here is that the person who performs maintenance, for example, is listed, and so are the sales folks, the production managers, shipping, receiving, and so on. No one can be left out. And if we walk around the facility during operations and see that areas of the operation are not listed on the organizational structure document, it should be updated. Remember that writing down the organizational structure must also have built into it the actions and reviews to keep a strong sense of accountability up and down the organization. And that each employee within that structure matches and fits our core values and maintains safety. And here we are not saying the review actions need to be written on the document, but that leadership can look at the meetings, review sessions, and other supervision actions that they line up for each department or employee group. So get that org chart or list put together, and then let's talk about how to properly delegate. So let's define delegation. Delegation is not just getting someone else to do something for you. Delegation is where leadership or management has defined the acceptable task and has determined the person that is going to do it and when. Sometimes we have repeated tasks that are done on a schedule, or we may have a one-time task. But tasks should be known by or come from leadership, and when it happens, it is properly communicated and reviewed for acceptable completion. To circle back on the previous concept of impunity that we talked about in the last video, here we can identify it as when an employee says or demonstrates that they can't or won't take on a defined task. When employees act with impunity for delegated tasks, it can take management long periods of time to identify that orders weren't followed, and when it is discovered, it is often way too late to do anything about it. Employees that are unresponsive or act with impunity for delegation might act as though they will do what is assigned, and then simply forget or ignore it and hope no one notices. This is why it is so important that we have tasks written down, because we need to have that accountability, and if we do not have a written record of the task completion, it can be difficult or even impossible to verify that the act happened after the fact. When we delegate, we don't want to be untrusting of employees, and by communicating to employees responsible for delegated tasks that those tasks should be written down, whether it be through a form, an email, a text message, whatever we need, we can be sure that delegated tasks can be reviewed after the fact. When done properly, we can maintain a healthy and sustainable process for delegation, and we can be confident delegated tasks are getting done. Whether you are operating within a large organization or small, each operational task has to be defined by the person doing it, and hopefully will also have a written record of when that task is completed and the person who did it, and someone who checks after the fact that it stayed done. We are going to talk about scheduling in other videos, but for now, let's stick with making sure we have defined roles, responsibilities, and records for tasks when they are completed. Now that we have introduced accountability versus impunity, along with core values in our business, and we've established that we will have a written organizational structure document along with proper delegation, we can move on to some of the higher level concepts in locking in that culture of food safety. In our next video, we're going to be speaking about key metrics and how we can use those to make sure that our culture of food safety is working properly.